Okay. Hi, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Hi, Will. Hi, Grant. Hi, Juice.
How's it going?
Hello, sir.
So, guys, this is the first Whiskey and Wicks. That's what we're calling it. This is the first trading meetup we're running thanks to Mind Digital. In this meetup, we intend to run it every 2 weeks. And essentially, what we want to do here is try and get a community together talking about trading, discussing different trading strategies, and figuring out how each person can improve their trading. I mean, it is kind of a fine art. At least that's how I've been seeing it since lockdown. Since I've not been allowed to go anywhere, all I've been doing is trading, and it's good to just pass on ideas and understand what other people are doing. So, I mean, to start this off, how about I get you guys to introduce yourselves? So, Grant, you can start.
Thanks, so. My name's Grant Colthup, CEO of Mind Digital, Australia's probably newest and cheapest crypto to fiat on-ramp, full order book exchange, OTC desk as well. My background is basically almost 20 years of trading, both personally and professionally, for institutions, investment banks, trading firms, and then really got into crypto back end of 2016, here now.
Welcome here. Will?
Yeah, so Will from Mining Store. I co-founded Mining Store with my business partner, Cal. And basically, we've been running for about 2 and a bit years now, Australia's largest supplier of crypto mining hardware. And we also host quite a large community for crypto traders, and we cover pretty much all investments now as well. So a lot of the people are in the Mining Store Discord right now as a part of the Whisky and Wicks chat. We'll go into more detail about the Discord later, and looking forward to having a chat about this tonight, guys.
Thanks. Will, also, guys, the link to the Discord is in the Zoom chat. You can see it. I posted it right there. Juice, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm CloudJooce by Twitter. Haven't really come out with my real name at the moment, but I jumped into crypto in 2017. So seen a nice high there, and then watched profits just disappear into nowhere. Maybe some of your guys' pockets, I don't know. But ever since then, just been trying to sharpen the craft, and mainly just trade Bitcoin. Did a little bit of alt stuff, finally starting to get into other markets, but passion's always in Bitcoin, and just like what it stands for. I like the idea that no one can control my money. And just like watching the space grow, I suppose, like everyone else.
100%.
Yeah, that's I'm gonna. Since I'm the host, I get to ask questions first, so this is how we're gonna run this. First, I'm gonna start with Juice, because I mean, your whole thing came when you decided on Friday 13th to call that as a top, and you shorted it all the way to the bottom. I'd like to know how you did that, first of all.
There's many attempts that went into that. It wasn't just a one go, but basically I didn't like the end. I think it was the middle of 2018. End of 2018, how Bitfinex, a few others were just printing a lot of Tether. It just looked like a long squeeze for a long time for me, and I still don't really believe that it crashed because of COVID. A lot of technical things went into picking that top, I suppose you'd call it. But there's no crystal ball or insider information from Wuhan. That's when I learned to trade. I remember I was trading a heap of different markets, and someone said to me, just look at Bitcoin and don't look at anything else. Just study that. Every time you look at a chart, that's the chart you're looking at. So I suppose, even though I've only been in since 17, I've got a fair idea of what the bigger money within the space is doing, or how it's trying to trick others into thinking what to do.
Okay, fair enough. And what do you think about Bitcoin right now as we're getting closer to the halving?
I always liked the spike down into 5.8, which we did see. I thought it'd react a lot more positively coming up to the halving. I suppose we're not there yet, so I don't know. At the moment, I'm flat in the market at the moment. obviously I'm looking for a long entry. That's why I'm here. I don't think this thing's going to zero.
Okay.
But yeah, it's hard to know. Like with all the other markets doing what they're doing at the moment, there's no sort of healthy markets anywhere really at the moment. There's a lot of manipulation, that sort of thing. So I do think we'll pump, but how much further we can go to the downside first is that's the question I'm trying to look the answer for.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, since we're on the halving topic, that's the biggest fundamental catalyst at the moment for Bitcoin is the halving coming up. I believe Btrash and we're not going to mention the other one had their halvings already. I know you did a presentation on that recently. Do you want to walk me through that? Like, share with us what you're thinking in terms of the halving, where you think the price is going, what your thoughts are around this coming from a miner.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like Juice, as you said, I'm sitting on the sidelines at the moment as well. Like, I think a lot of what happens with the halving is things that are actually already priced in. Like, people think that on this date, like, the mining rewards is going to halve and, Bitcoin's going to escalate, massively in price, but it's not really the case. Like anything, like, people buy the rumor, sell the fact, or everything's kind of priced in before the event actually happens. So I'll give a bit of a rundown of exactly what the halving is. I can share my screen and actually bring up a presentation if you like. So
feel free to do that.
Basically, when Satoshi designed the Bitcoin blockchain, he wanted to control inflation. And so back in the day when people were first mining, 2008, 2009, people aren't really going to be incentivized to switch on a random computer and, start mining this cryptocurrency unless they're getting a pretty decent reward for it. So, if you imagine telling your friends or family that you're mining Bitcoin back in 2008, let alone now, most people are kind of like, oh, that seems a bit crazy. The reward was a lot higher back then than what it is now. Every 10 minutes, there was a reward going out to the miners for facilitating this network. And that was at a total of 50 Bitcoin. That halves around about 4 years or so, or 210,000 blocks. And it's halved to 25, and then it's gone to 12.5. The next halving that we see, which would be on the 12th of May next month, is going to reduce the reward down to 6.25. So in total, there's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin in circulation, which means there's around about 3 million Bitcoin left to be mined. And every 4 years, the reward structure will halve and halve and halve. And based on that, we will see all Bitcoin mined by around about 2,140. Before I just go on to a little bit of analysis on previous halvings and things like that.
Does 5G affect it?
Look, I don't. I think it could, but at the end of the day, what really affects the rate at which the coins are mined is the difficulty chart. So basically, every 2 weeks, that difficulty chart is readjusted. I don't think 5G will really affect it, but it could have effect, absolutely.
What about the lizard people using 5G though to affect Bitcoin mining?
What was that one? Sorry.
Lizard people using 5G to affect Bitcoin mining.
Absolutely. Yeah. So and basically, we'll
move on.
Yeah. We'll move on. On the topic, so basically, what will happen after 2040? There will be no coins left in reserve. But what we will basically see is the amount of transactions on the network will actually compensate the reward for the miners. Going forward a little bit more, Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV, they actually just had their halving on the 8th of April. And as you can see in the first chart, the network hash rate has dropped quite substantially. It actually went about 50% down, but there was not really any price action. So that's what I mean by everything's kind of already priced in. It's not like on the date we see this massive incline or decline. It tends to have already kind of been priced in, I suppose. One thing that, and where I'll pretty much just leave it for the Bitcoin halving side of things, is I've put together this chart which kind of tracks what price action looks like between each halving. And from the first halving to the second halving, we saw an increase in price of 9,600%. And then from the all-time high in that cycle down to the actual next halving, it it lost about 50% of that value. Now, similar kind of thing has happened between the second halving and now. We've seen a 2,900% to the all-time high in 2017, 2018, where Juice was saying, a lot of people got burnt. And it's halved again from that all-time high to about 65% loss. So, I mean, from a 9,600% in the previous halving, and then it was 2,900% in the latest halving. That's about a third of what the last one was. If we even saw a third of what we had, a third of 2,900, that'd be about 1,000%, which could take us to 77,000 for Bitcoin. So, do I think that's going to happen? I don't know. I wouldn't have thought that Bitcoin was going to go to 20,000 on the second halving. I'm definitely not here one of those people saying Bitcoin's going to the moon or anything. Like, I have my skeptics, and I actually think Bitcoin has a lot of room to move down from here, to be honest. But at the same time, looking back in 2016, I probably wouldn't have thought it would go to 20,000 as well. So that gives just a bit of an understanding of like actually what the Bitcoin halving is, how the cycles tend to work. The last slide I'll end it on is just putting it a bit more into a graphic where you can see with colors and blocks what these cycles tend to look like, and we tend to get this big bull run, a massive bear decline, an accumulation phase, an expansion phase, and then the bull run kind of kicks off again. So I mean, that paints a picture for people, gives people a bit of understanding what this halving is actually all about. No, there's not going to be a halving in the supply of coins. It's just the reward to miners that reduces, which slows down the new coins coming into circulation.
Okay, so it's quite what's the word I'm looking for? Detailed rundown.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, now that is actually very interesting. You said, I mean, even at the point of thinking 77,000 won't get there, it's very far. I mean, ignoring how low it can go, I remember even back in the days when, if you told me 5 years ago that Bitcoin is going to go to 10,000, I'd call you a liar.
Yeah, as I would too.
I personally cashed out a massive stack when it reached 2,500 because I thought that was like, guys, you're crazy. $2,000. This thing, I've seen this thing grow from single digits to $2,000. I mean,
100%.
Surely can't go anymore.
And I think that's what people get caught up in. Like, as I say, I'm not claiming it's going to go to 200K. People just get put off by that. And, I do like Bitcoin, but I'm on the sidelines right now. Like, I'm waiting for it to come back down. But at the same time, I just do think it is possible. It does tend to follow this, really clear pattern. I do think that after things cool off with coronavirus and people going back to work and, markets across the board are more stable, we will start to follow that kind of parabolic pattern again.
I mean, again, fundamentally, I think the case for Bitcoin hasn't been stronger in a long time.
100%.
I mean, especially with the Fed going brr, and since we're going to go into, financial market stuff. Okay, now I'm going to ask you a few questions, Grant, but first, before we get into Bitcoin, people keep calling me stupid for worrying about this, but can you explain to me why oil went to negative?
Sure.
I don't get how something goes negative. It's a product. Why? Yeah, please explain.
Yeah, so I think it's important to differentiate out between that. So essentially what went negative was a futures contract, and that futures contract at the time went to the point of where you have to physically deliver that oil. So essentially what that meant was that the person, if you were going long that contract and you were going to then have to take those barrels of oil essentially, and you're going to have to store them somewhere, and you have to deliver them to a very specific spot in the US, and obviously you can't just store oil wherever you please. You're going to get in trouble by the government's the environmental authority is going to come around, so you can't just have all this massive storage of oil in your backyard type thing. So essentially what it reflected was the cost for someone to take that oil off of your hands and actually go store it somewhere. And that's why it went negative, because essentially what it was saying is that the asset might be worth $20 a barrel, but it was actually costing someone, when it traded negative $37, you can essentially say it was costing someone $57 a barrel to go store it. So the value of that barrel of oil was actually therefore negative $37.
So that would be the one futures market. Is that reflected in every other futures market?
No, because that's the interesting part. There is the futures markets settle into different geographical locations. So if you trade Singapore oil, that trades into Singapore, that settles into Singapore. If you trade Middle Eastern oil that usually would settle in Abu Dhabi or Dubai, and then there'll be European oil, which is Brent, will settle somewhere in Europe as well. So it's got to do with the facility in the US is in Cushing. I believe it's in Oklahoma, and basically all the pipes are full. It's relatively near the Gulf of Mexico, so all the oil tankers are full as well. So essentially, there was just a whole thing of where the entire infrastructure of that had just filled up very rapidly, obviously because of the drop in demand from Corona, the oil just not being used in cars, etc., and things like that, and producers kept pumping because essentially, this is the thing, right? So it's for as much as you might think that these producers are all geniuses or all smart as well. Oftentimes they're no smarter than the average person. So essentially, all they did is they looked at it and said, well, you know what? All we're going to do is we're just going to keep pumping because we need to make money ourselves, and that's what they did. And obviously, it just led to this very bizarre scenario in which the physical limitation of the market now is affecting the financial representation of it, which is oil futures, whereas spot oil is still trading at a positive value. So spot oil is AKA for me to go buy a barrel of oil off of you on the street at my desired location. It's it's not negative.
Okay, so that's clearer now. It makes more sense to me in that sense. My main concern was when that happened is I like to look at Bitcoin like digital gold, which is also a commodity. So what I was thinking was, if oil actually went to negative, would it be possible for me to wake up tomorrow morning and see Bitcoin trading negative?
Yeah,
because it's a futures contract. Can that happen?
Or the futures could. I mean, we saw that only less than 6 weeks ago when BitMEX almost went to zero. The future absolutely can, right? So it's an important thing for people to understand who don't come from traditional markets. The futures is just a financial representation of the product itself. So the underlying product is a barrel of oil, but what's being traded in the futures pit is just paper, and that's oftentimes you'll hear that. So for listeners out there and people who are getting into gold, oftentimes you'll hear when people start talking about gold trading, they'll talk about the spot market and the paper market. When they're talking about the paper market, that's the futures market. When they're talking about the spot market, that's me and you actually exchanging a physical gold bar.
On that note, Grant, personally, I've set up a Perth Mint account recently. I've never really invested in gold or silver, but I'm looking to get into it. Is there a difference between setting up a Perth Mint account and having them store it? That's not necessarily holding paper gold. Is that right? You still have that backed in a vault as opposed to a paper? What's the difference there?
Yeah, correct. So Perth Mint, both, they have essentially two options of the way, well, three options really. One, you can buy the gold, have it stored in the vault in the Perth Mint. Secondly, you can participate in something that's called Gold Pass, which is a gold certificate. So it says you own one gold, well, how many ever gold bars in the Perth Mint, but that is physical gold. They don't. So the process that if they sold more certificates than what they had, that process is called reappropriation.
Mm-hmm.
They do not undertake that. So every gold certificate, every Gold Pass certificate is linked directly to a piece of physical gold, and then they've also then issued off the back of that also the Perth Mint Gold token, currently listed on KuCoin.
Yep.
And again, that is linked to a Gold Pass certificate. So again, it is as good as actually having physical
the
gold. And for both the Perth Mint Gold token and the Gold Pass certificates, there is a way for that actually to be converted into spot gold. You have to go through a bit of a process. I think there's some fees, but it is actually doable.
Yeah, awesome.
Grant, what do you think of not being able to buy gold at the moment?
I mean, it's interesting. So we up here in Brisbane, I've been speaking to some guys who tend to, they're in the jewelry market, but they also do sell gold to the I guess the wholesale, investor community as well. Basically, at the moment, Juice, for them, it's basically they get whatever they can get from a gold point of view. They put towards their jewelry, and then basically whatever they have left over that's outside the jewelry, they basically just can't keep up with it. They basically just can keep selling and selling. I believe some of the bigger the bigger mints, so Perth Mint, ABC Gold here in Australia, you can still source some of it, but again, you go onto a waiting list and things like that, which is an interesting play from my point of view. Is it's like, at that point, going on a waiting list, you might get onto it, you might get your gold, and the price could have done whatever in between. So it's either, you got to make a choice of either really, do you want to go buy, in the paper market to hedge yourself while you try and get the physical, or do you want to just own the paper market as well? Because I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, as we just saw, there can be a big disconnection between physical markets, paper markets, and physical markets. But gold probably, unlike oil, is more interesting in the fact that obviously it can't be transported as readily. So, it's one of those things that's going to be harder for people to claim delivery. For people who have been around for a while, if you read, if you follow Zero Hedge closely, there's been a lot of articles, especially since 2008, about how gold traders should squeeze paper traders. So essentially go long paper and then demand delivery. And then obviously if they own the physical as well, the people can't actually source the physical to actually deliver, and that should cause some type of large gold squeeze. But yeah, I mean, at the moment, it's one of those things. I think it's going to persist for a while. At the the retail level, it's going to be hard to actually get physical gold. The main thing is I would caution people, well, not caution people, but I just think when you're looking to get into physical gold, the main thing is making sure sort of, know what you're buying, understand all the costs in it. I mean, oftentimes there's, lots of hidden spreads and things like that. And also making sure that the gold actually comes from a reputable gold, from a reputable vault. Again, if you buy low quality gold from low quality vaults, oftentimes you can have a difficulty selling it, even if, the price has gone in your favor. So I definitely make sure, do your homework a little bit beforehand.
Good advice.
Okay, guys, I just have a question from the crowd. Do you guys want to take it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, hi. Hi, guys.
Hi. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. Thanks for the information. It's really interesting. So, yeah, I'm here in Perth, so I happen to be just a short trip from the Mint. And I was looking that up recently. I was just interested to hear what your comments are about silver.
I'll give that to Will. He's been following it pretty closely as far as I understand.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. So with silver, personally, I had recently set up an account with the Perth Mint. I was having a look into silver. And basically, what the main thing that stood out for me for silver in particular was the ratio between gold and silver. So 1 ounce of gold at the moment is getting you a record high of about 114 ounces of silver. And basically, on the back of exactly what Omar was saying earlier, the Fed and pretty much all governments are going brr, and that pretty much means that they're printing a lot of money, debasing our currency. We're looking obviously to get as best storage of value as we can. So you could go into gold, absolutely. But the play that I'm looking at the moment is going into silver, waiting for that ratio to come down to around about maybe 80 or 50, which is a median line, and then selling that silver into gold and holding that gold long term. So yeah, I mean, I would like to eventually have, maybe 75 to 25% split of holding gold and silver. But yeah, right now I just see no better opportunity that if you're looking for a storage of value to go into something like silver, which just has, on that ratio against gold is blown out significantly.
So what a lot of people are saying to me, though, and I mean, I've loved silver for quite some time, but that they've seen, like they say for Bitcoin and the other markets, they've seen the market fluctuate, but effectively it's not really doing anything particularly sexy, especially around that March 12th massive fall. Everything went down like a stack of cards. So what would you reply to those people?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like silver, it's at a 11-year all-time low, but it also, since the GFC, if we look at how these kind of storage of value assets respond to financial crises like we're in right now, at the GFC 2008, it did reach a 360% high. So gold reached, I think, about a 260% high. So it definitely still acted as a storage of value. Over the years, it's come back down. It's at 11-year low. It's at about the same price that it was during the global financial crisis. And what I pretty much say is, if I get it wrong, then my future wife will be pretty happy with the jewellery she'll be able to wear.
I also like to think about it as actually having the physical coins as opposed to the bullion, because of the fact that it is still currency. So you can still go out where it's hard to cut up a bullion. It's possible to go out and trade, 3,000 loaves of bread for one silver coin or something, depending on inflation, or vice versa.
That's right. I think to your point as well, why people might not like it as much as, the fact that it takes up a lot more space to store. So obviously holding 1 ounce of gold isn't going to take up as much space. So it does have a bit of a better value in terms of storage of value. But yeah, honestly, the play that I'm going for is just looking at that ratio, which historically over hundreds of years has been, closer to oscillating between 30 and maybe 80. 1 ounce of gold getting you 30 or 80 ounces of silver, and it's blown well up to 114. So I would prefer to have gold, but taking advantage of an opportunity like that is essentially what I'm going for there.
But also, speaking about mining, there are different trains of thought thinking about the amount of silver that's in the ground that's quite limited to the amount of gold. So that might actually replace it. And also the fact that it's used as filaments and things in a lot of our devices, which we're heavily dependent on, including washing machines and what have you. So I'm interested in the silver discourse for sure. Do
you own silver yourself, or are you interested in... Yeah, you do. Okay. Yeah, you mentioned so.
Yeah, but I don't like going to the mint. There are too many cameras. I'll go there with a mask on. I'll go there with a mask on.
So what do you think about Bitcoin, Bot?
Oh, I've been loving Bitcoin for a while. One of my biggest passions is to try and talk to as many women as possible, just to make sure that they don't miss out on this information wealth revolution. It's really, really a big passion of mine. And unfortunately, and I'm going to sound like I'm generalizing against my own sex here, but it can be difficult to engage people in conversation because they think it's too hard, it's too much, it's too tough. The usual crazy paradigms that you're stuck with when you're trying to raise kids and get through life on the smell of an oily rag. So yeah, I'm loving Bitcoin.
Let's just pretend things go to shit and you're holding your gold and silver. Do you fit Bitcoin in there as well, or? Yeah,
absolutely. Although I wouldn't know in terms of holding ratio where I stand compared to people who got in way earlier. It got sniffed around under my nose. It got offered to me like a carrot in 2014, and I was too busy having a relationship breakdown. So I drifted off and did something much more dramatic and hysterical. And then I came back and went, bloody hell, it was 2017. And I was watching everything really grow. So yeah, I guess sort of early 2017 was when I actually physically got involved. But I still believe it's early days. But yeah, I've been a holder of silver. In fact, it was when I was learning about trading the price movements in gold and silver that the conversation started to drift across to crypto. That's kind of where I started my whole career trajectory in this crazy space.
Very good.
Thanks for that opinion.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for commenting.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Zoe?
Yeah, I have one from Scott over here. I just need to put him on.
I was hoping I wasn't the only one that brought a drink to the table there, Grant.
Nah, mate.
Oh yeah, before we start, cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Oh, I've got to fill back up.
I am cheesing from my underground bunker here to Apocalyptic City.
Yeah, I was only imagining if I tried to convince you to put a camera on. I was like, yeah, it's not going to happen.
Which Fallout vault are you in, Juice?
That's who I am. Sorry?
Which Fallout vault are you in?
Nah, this is deeper than that.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Hello, Scott.
That's core type stuff. The Guinness is good though.
Yeah.
Scott, you're on, but you're muted for some reason.
Scott, if you click down the bottom left, you've used Zoom heaps, but you should be able to activate your mic. This is Mad J from the Mining Store Discord.
You there, mate?
Okay, while he figures it out, I have a question for you.
Sorry, guys.
No problem.
I was making a cup of tea for my wife.
Well played. Put some whiskey in it, mate.
Yeah. Sorry, I was out of the room. Was there a question or?
I think you were asking a question.
Yeah.
You had your hand raised, so I just put you on so you can.
I get confused when it's raised and lowered. So sorry, just ignore.
Okay, that's fine.
Easy.
Okay, so we'll have a question from Declan Spencer.
Yep.
What he's asking is, how does the marginal cost of production cost in Australia compared to China? What kind of kilowatts per hour do you run on if you're what production cost for what though?
Yeah, this is for mining. This is mining related. So basically just
but mining what?
Any coin. So what your cost is when you're mining is essentially your power. So basically what I assume Declan's asking is what Australia rates are compared to over in China. I assume. So basically in Australia, I think our average kilowatt power rate is something between 20 to 35 cents. I know a lot of people in Sydney, Grant, maybe in Queensland, I think it can be a bit lower. But anyway, it's pretty high. We, for our hosting facilities, able to achieve 12-cent kilowatt hours. So it's about a third of what most people are getting. Overseas, you can tend to get, I think the lowest that you would see anyone get, and you have to have a pretty big setup and be taking advantage of hydroelectricity, is something around the 4 to 5 US cents. I mean, if anyone could find hosting miners for that kind of price, which is pretty close to what we're hosting at 12 cents Aussie. So yeah, that pretty much answers the question. These days the best miners are those that can mine with around, I would say profitable is around 4 US cents to 10, max. I would say you want to be getting to 10 US cents, else you probably want to give it a miss. One point I might add as well, it's leading into high water season overseas in China. So that's an interesting point coming into the halving, that a lot of people are expecting some big farms to turn off old rigs. We might actually see a lot of them keeping them on because they can take advantage of really, really cheap electricity costs through hydroelectricity in the high water season. So yeah, hopefully that answers the question. But to summarize it, around 12 cents Aussie is what we're able to achieve at the moment. And in Australia, people are getting around about 25 to 35 cents.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, on that, I had a really good conversation with a fellow yesterday up here in southeast Queensland. He's got 2 Tesla Powerwalls. He's got a pretty decent solar setup. So I'll send him your way. But so he was interested in more or less sort of the similar question, because he can now actually put back to the grid at 12 to 14 cents a kilowatt hour.
Oh, that's pretty
good. He was still, exactly, and he was still wondering, what would it be profitable for him to actually lay out the capital to pick up some rigs and do that, or whether or not, should he continue to do that? I mean, I think from my point of view is that seemed to be a lot higher than what traditionally I'd heard you could get for selling back into the grid. I thought it was usually sub single digits.
It's definitely high rate. Most people that I talk to, because we get a lot of people inquiring for rigs for the exact same reason. They're like, it's almost a scam. I'm not going to sell my excess power to the government or back to the grid at 4 or 5 cents is what a lot of people are getting offered. So if they're getting 12 cents, it can actually be good to sell back to the grid. Some clients of ours have kind of thought about it in a way, well, how about I sell the 12 cents to the government, the grid, but then use our hosted solution, and they're pretty much getting free power, but they don't have to deal with the noise of the miner. They don't have to deal with the scalability issues, things like that. Yep. So that's
that's an interesting part. So that's essentially that's when I said to him, I said what's your actual physical setup like to be able to put these from as you said, from a noise point of view, from a heat point of view. Obviously in Queensland, you don't want heat does become an issue. As you guys know, also, dust is an issue as well. So,
exactly right. Yeah.
Do you have that requirement set up required to do so?
That's it. Yeah, it's important to kind of take those factors into consideration. Like, just because you have the cheap power doesn't mean you've got the facility or the circuit boards or the infrastructure. The if you're in a really hot zone, you might burn out the chips easier. So sometimes it can be a case, particularly when people have solar, is actually selling back to the grid. If it's at 12 cents, that's a perfect example, because they pretty much be getting free power on the rigs that they're hosting. And then actually having it put into a professional facility, it's a lot more scalable. Your wife's not going to give you a headache every day about the noise of the rigs buzzing away. That's definitely possibilities out there too.
Yeah, no, very interesting. I mean, it's
Go, Grant.
Oh, I was just going to say, so out of a professional miner setup that I've recently been following, I mean, even for them, their cost per coin is actually not as steady as you would think. Even with getting good access to energy, that there's always going to be variations. There's always going to be changes in difficulty and things like that. I mean, so they went from essentially a ratio in January of 2 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
They essentially were able to sell, for every dollar they put in, they got $2 back from selling their Bitcoin.
Yep.
And then you fast forward to March. So in February went in their favor even further. By the time it got to March, that was down to 1.5. So it does show you that it can still be a very volatile, business. It's not as, I think people think it becomes a very set and forget type business.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas obviously, it requires a lot more.
Yeah, it really does. And I think that's why we were so big on starting our community side with Mining Store, rather than just letting people, sell people rigs and then they turn them on themselves and try and manage the strategy and everything like that on their own. It also comes down to, on that day, you might be getting 2 to 1, but did you actually sell the coins on the market? No, you probably held them till a later date. And if Bitcoin was worth $10,000 on that date, but you sold it at 20, well, then you've actually got 4 to 1 there. So, it does require a bit of knowledge of understanding the markets to capitalize on it. I mean, like any investment, you can get by being passive. But if you kind of put a little bit of extra legwork in, have a look at, where the market is, try to put your sell points at the right point, you can really, expand on your investment pretty well there.
Yep. So, guys, I just have I have a little guest that'd like to join our panel. Should be coming on now.
The Bitlord.
Sir, can you hear us?
He's on mute. Oh, there he is.
How y'all doing?
Hey, Bitlord.
How are you?
Good. Great to be here.
Good to meet you.
How's everyone doing?
Yeah, very well.
Just watched oil go to negative. Reading your tweets about oil, you seem very excited about it lately.
Yeah, that's it, man. I mean, look, it's a lot of what brought us to crypto initially is obviously BTC, but trading at the opportunity through that volatility, and that's what we're seeing in the oil markets now. So it makes sense to get in there, man.
Okay, so I mean, yeah, we shifted a lot towards oil and gold and silver, Bitcoin. Back to the court. Where does everyone feel Bitcoin's going? I mean, am I wrong to say fundamentally that Bitcoin is stronger than it's ever been? I mean, we have clear proof of money being essentially worthless out there. Economies just treating money like it's nothing. Shouldn't, with all these fundamental factors, Bitcoin be pumping?
It's interesting as well, because you look at all the big events that have happened over history and everyone goes to gold and silver, but you can't buy it. Yet I can jump on my computer and buy Bitcoin.
Yeah, 100%. The liquidity in Bitcoin is actually one of the biggest factors right now. I think also that you can buy, sell it, move it to someone else's wallet at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, public holiday, whenever it is a massive factor there as well. In terms of where it's priced at the moment, I'm pretty surprised it's rallied to where it is right now, to be honest. I mean, I'm surprised the stock markets have rallied to where it is right now too. But I would expect it to have a bit of a decline back to the 500 area before we start to see some consolidation and then head into more of a rally.
Yeah, I think it's. I agree with everyone. Like point, like it does feel like it's better than ever, and all the rest of it. Speaking to a guy today who used to be fairly well connected, so he was a prime broker for many years in Hong Kong and Tokyo, covered most of the big investment banks, most of the big hedge funds. And he was saying, like, over the last week, he's had 15 of his former clients ring him up, asking him about, all asking about how to get into Bitcoin. Yet, obviously, we're just not seeing that follow through yet into the price. Obviously, there's a few boys here that love their TA as well. You look at it from a technical point of view, it doesn't look particularly the most inspiring chart I've ever seen from that point of view. So, it is what it is at the moment. It feels like, the project gets better, concept gets better. Couldn't ask for the authorities to do any more for us to make it more attractive yet. Yeah, we're just getting a lagged price.
100%. I think that point there, I think it was really disappointing. Like, I suppose when you have a global liquidity pinch and everything kind of dumps, that I think people got really scared off that it was tied to the stocks or it was tied to global markets. That was the biggest disappointment. Otherwise, as you said, like fundamentally, it is in its best time right now when the government is printing, when people want more control over their funds, inflation's occurring. It's literally the time it should be shining. I think it will. I'm being patient. I don't think anything can really shine right now as much as no matter fundamental or technicals suggest. But might hand over to Bitlord and grab his opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Bitlord, you've been around for quite some time. How are you feeling about this? What are your thoughts on what's happening?
Oh, mate, it's like, to me, it's all the same shit. It's just another day. I mean, look, we've seen the worst of the worst. We've gone through like the GOX era, the Silk Road. We've had the government's banning it. We've had all sorts of crazy stuff. I mean, apparently it was, supposed to go to zero each time. We had the major FUD going through the Bitcoin Cash fork and all that sort of stuff. I mean, we have been through the absolute wars, mate. And look, it goes up and down and up and down. But in the long enough time frame, it's designed to appreciate. What we're seeing now is, we're seeing a lot of money moving. A lot of people, a lot of institutions, a lot of people, they're trading this on derivatives now. Derivatives market's massive. You're still seeing that money flow into spot. And at the end of the day, I mean, you're seeing absolute carnage across the global markets, but BTC is holding relative steady. It's like yesterday, I had a look at the markets. I'm keeping my eye on absolutely everything across the world, and BTC has been pretty stable. We know it's obviously down like 30% from its recent high, but this is absolutely nothing we haven't seen in history beforehand. And considering when I'm looking at BTC, how I'm looking at it for the next sort of 5 or 10 years, I think around 6-8 is a relatively respectable entry for anybody sitting there thinking about entering. It's somewhere that if I was new and I heard about Bitcoin in this current climate, I wouldn't have a problem buying a little bit there. But as you know, guys, I mean, we could really pull the rug on this. You've seen charts, you've seen fractals, you've seen ideas for the 3500s, you've seen some people smoking crack showing $500 charts and things like that. But end of the day, I mean, it's still here. It's going to be here for a very long time. And the number one thing is, look, if Bitcoin's not here, it is the least of your problems. I mean, the whole world will collapse if BTC is not here. You've got, your whole entire banking and internet infrastructure. So, I have no problem being all in with my BTC. Because if it's not around, it's really the least of my problems. I've got enough soup in the cupboard, so I'm sitting pretty good. So,
mate, I saw your chicken tender parmigiano the other day. Looks pretty good. Carbonara.
Man, that is a good recipe. The Italians don't like it because it's got cream. They were going crazy. I'm like, cream.
I definitely agree with what you said. Yeah.
Yeah. Juice. Just for the audience, mate. Can you confirm? Do you have a beard or not?
I do have a beard.
Yeah, look.
Oh, fucking will, mate. You look at you. You need to step up, bro, and get a proper beard.
I'm sit out of here. The youth is killing me. I actually shaved for the occasion. ISO beards.
So,
Yeah, you guys
Interest-
got some stuff rocking there, mate. This is taking me about 6 months.
This is yesterday.
Yeah, you know.
Like, what do you all think though about this whole COVID thing? And like, to me, it looked like we were already headed for a recession, and then this just popped up and made it happen a bit faster.
Yeah, I reckon like my opinion on it all is we like particularly on our forex side, we run a forex business, and we were kind of calling that there was going to be a massive capitulation, and the S&P called it actually too early. We lost on some of the trades, but in general, everything looked like it needed a correction despite COVID. COVID probably just brought it to fruition, and if anything, you know, potentially acting as almost an excuse for, you know, everything being overvalued. So I honestly reckon that, you know, it was due to happen anyway. I think it's going to be prolonged, the damages of it now. Obviously, the amount of stimulus that's coming through is just absurd, to be honest. But again, it really points to me things like Bitcoin or gold or silver that aren't going to be debased due to printing money. You know, that's what I'm looking at the moment.
It's almost like, you know, you put a trade on and you know it's going to go down, and it starts going down, and then something like this comes out and everyone says, well, how could you predict it? But it looked weak all along.
It did, yeah, 100%.
That's it, man. I mean, look, the show had to end. I mean, this stuff had to correct at some stage. I mean, we've been building this, you know, Australia's been in like a 20-year bull market. I mean, it's like, look, we survived 2008. Australia was well overdue, and now it's coming. It's going to hit very hard. The entire global market, it was undeniably. You do not have to be an expert to simply understand the fact that it was due. It was coming, and we always need a narrative. You know, there always needs to be some sort of convenient narrative. It doesn't matter what we think or say about COVID. COVID's a narrative. We can blame this shit on COVID. You know, it's a great sort of scapegoat, and you know, it could just be the way the universe works. You know, it comes around at the right time to pop that bubble. But shit, mate. I mean, really, I don't see us coming back from here. It started, and it's a very slow unwind. You know, it doesn't happen overnight. I just cannot see the economy bouncing back. Even if everything went back to good tomorrow, you have that massive, you know, you basically topple the first card, and you know, you can't just remove a card. It's going to keep going. So I think it's a very interesting time, you know, and anybody that's sort of not paying attention, you know, you've got to be asleep at the wheel.
For sure.
Yeah, I think the most interesting like analogy is 2007. So leading into 2007, everyone said, you know, the US housing market was cooked. You had, you know, Mexican maids buying $800,000 places in California, and this is ridiculous. And then you saw, I think it was Soros and one of the other big guys got really, really short in about July 07, which is, you know, it's US summer, traditionally thin markets. And then August 07, Countrywide, which is the biggest non-performing mortgage broker in the US, collapsed. S&P was off 20%. Everyone's like, okay, this is it, it's done. And then before we knew it, it actually, I think October 11, 2007, where S&P printed a new high, and then obviously that was the end of the story, right? So we then saw that, you know, went into the new year and just fell off a cliff into 2008, and then, you know, traded all the way down to 2009. So it's potentially that we're seeing that same thing here. We've seen, you know, the off the cliff move, the snap back, the reaction back, and now, you know, you feel like, you know, personally just feels like you got all the authorities pushing on a piece of string. You're going to keep pushing on one hard really, really, really hard, and with string, doesn't matter how hard you push on your side, it's still not going to go any further than what it's gone initially. So, you know, I think we've had this crazy thing where markets have just repriced in the fact that, well, you know, half the world's not going to die tomorrow, hip hip hooray, let's bounce, but they're not pricing in anything that's going to happen in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12, 24 months. And that's the part where I think that's the part's going to have the biggest impact on people as well. You know, when people start changing their behaviors, when people start changing their lifestyles and shit like that. No one's done that yet. Everyone's just waiting indoors, being told to do what to do. But as soon as those doors open, they're going to run out and act like they did for about 2 weeks, and they're going to realize, or maybe I might lose my job again in a couple of months. Geez, I better start changing the way I act. and I think that's going to be a really interesting thing.
I think on that point of like how people are going to change, how people are going to act, I think this, yeah, people say it now when you're locked inside, but I think there will be massive changes in how people live. People are going to get used to working from home. People are going to get, even simple things like hygiene. Obviously, it might last 6 months and then die off a little bit, but I think this one there will be some real big changes in how people see things in general. Sustainable construction and things like that is also something that we're looking at closely. But one thing I was going to ask you there, Grant, you mentioned it's kind of like the old trick, and it seems as simple as like, oh yeah, the government just print money and they get us out of it, but that is essentially what happened from the 2008 crisis, and it just delayed it until now. Like, do you think that I think US's debt is 110% of their GDP? Do you think like this whole debt crisis can lead to the US dollar failing, or is that something that we should wipe off the cards of happening in the next 5-10 years?
Yeah. So to answer that question, one, the money printing in 2008, whilst it was completely reckless and unheralded at the time, the only one good thing it actually did do to give the authorities have to give them one leg up is the fact that it was the actual appropriate response to the actual problem that was being faced. So the problem that was being faced in 2008 was that it wasn't that necessarily that all these companies just stopped, like there was a big demand shock like we've had with COVID, right?
Yeah.
It's not the fact that everyone's locked indoors, no one's spending money. What it was I didn't trust you, you didn't trust me that I was going to pay you back.
Yes.
So the cost of credit just went through the roof.
Correct, yeah.
So when they printed money and gave out free loans, that brought the cost of credit down. Now the issue is this time they've done the exact same course of action, and the problem with that is this isn't a credit crisis. This isn't me and you distrusting each other. This isn't me going, oh, Will Wright's a bad credit, I'm not going to lend him $100, or if I'm going to lend him $100, I'm going to lend it to him at 20%. It's more that I don't know if he's not going to come out of his house and go buy my stuff ever again. That's what I'm concerned about. So the money printing in this aspect is just complete rubbish. It doesn't actually correlate to the problem that needs to be solved. We need to make sure that people can pay rents, that they can stay in their house, they can buy food, they can stay alive. Basically, is going to be the main issue, not that whether or not can I go get a cheap enough loan. And this is the issue that's perpetuated from it, was that the policymakers that have been involved in this stuff is just, at the end of the day, they're just people who they're just one-trick ponies. That thing worked once, well, let's just do that again.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you do it faster, well, it's going to work this time. The car's red, it goes faster. Like, that's essentially their logic at the moment, and it's just garbage, spaghetti logic.
Do you think it's like unwise for people really to start to gear towards storage of value assets? Like, I haven't gone through 30, 40 years and experienced crisis myself before, but even myself, I'm looking at, what I've done over the past 3 years and how am I going to retain that value? I don't want to just hold it in fiat when all this printing is going on. That's why I'm moving towards silver. Like, would you say that's a bad approach?
Well, the interesting part is I think the main concern for anyone at the moment isn't. So I was talking to I was driving in the car today and I was on the phone to a guy, and the biggest concern is, we all hoped that Bitcoin was going to moon when the system collapsed in on itself, and that was going to cause some great inflationary spike. And under Bitcoin's limited supply, that should work really, really well. It should be like its absolute, perfect season for it to rally. Well, the problem is now what's happened is we've actually had an exogenous shock. So it's not within the system. The system itself didn't fall over. We had something happen that squeezed the system. But what's it done? It's actually caused a massive deflationary spike to the system, because demand's gone down and supply is either gone up or stayed equivalent, the same. So the issue is about people aren't necessarily worried about. It's not 1920 Germany where people were worried about holding store of value assets because by the end of the day the price of bread was going to be 5 times higher. It's like, well, I just want to hold something that I know that has some tangible attachment to value and to cash flows, that it's not gonna, even if it goes down, that's fine, but it's going to still pay me something. It's still going to be there producing in 20 years time. So I think the big thing where people will really rush to is they'll try to buy stuff that's tangible, real productive assets. So farmland, producing food, producing, metals, things like that. I think those types of businesses will really, and industries will really do well out of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's interesting, right? But at the moment, everyone's looking at Bitcoin as like that safe port in a storm, which is fair enough. But, the government's on the verge of banning cash. And I'm not really into conspiracies, but, they have a fair reason to think that doing that's the right thing. But by banning cash, where does someone like, Tiger King pick up a bag? He buys Bitcoin.
Pick up a bag of what?
Like a
I heard Tiger.
Yeah.
I heard Tiger and King.
Tiger King.
This is why I'm not showing my face right now. But look back at Bitcoin as a tool.
Is Carol in the chat?
Carol's here. She's next to me.
Carol Baskin.
No, but looking back as Bitcoin as a way to move money around when you can't move money around. I know I'm working as a tradie at the moment, and people can't go and pull 10K out of the bank to pay a tradesman like they used to.
Yeah.
That's tracked.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? That's Bitcoin comes in as that currency, not the investment.
Well, it's good. It's good like that. I mean, look, you can use it. You can send it anywhere like that. But for when you want to do those sort of, for when people want to do those sort of transactions, a little bit more private or sort of off the books, literally, it's the worst thing on the planet to use. I mean, cash is king. Cash has always been king. But as you've seen, like with the Australian restrictions, you see it across the world. It's very hard to use cash. Like if you walk in somewhere and you drop a stack, you try to buy something, they won't even accept it. They want it in their bank account. They want it like that. So, it is putting a lot more transparency into the economy. And look, people that are doing those things, they need to find new and intuitive ways to figure it out. And a lot of it sort of reverts back onto, goods and service. So, if you're going to, buy a bag, and it might not always come down to cash. I mean, some people, like today, for example, I saw someone stealing in a shop. There was a car waiting out the front for them. They were literally going in there. They stole some shit. And then, they're jumping in a car. And that's probably, to get something, from a dealer or something like that. But right now, this whole sort of, you got to accept the fact that there's a large part of the economy that it's a darker black economy. You have all those sort of things going on. You're always going to have them going on. You can't ever stop that. It's been going around for hundreds of centuries, and it's not going anywhere. So these people, they will find ways to do what they need to do. Perhaps BTC could be an option, but realistically, it is the worst thing to use for that. So, what do we really have? It's interesting. I mean, at least in the US, you want to buy a stick or something like that. You can walk into a store. You can buy your marijuana. Over here, you can't really do that. It's not legal. So there's always going to be a black market, and the criminals are generally the first to move on something, like they were with Bitcoin. So whatever the criminals are doing, keep an eye on it, because that's what you want to invest in.
This is not financial advice.
Well, it is. That's what I'm saying, bro. They're always the first to move. They're very adaptive.
Yeah,
you're right, 100%.
I have a question from the crowd. Let's see, from Jake. Hello, Jake, talk. Hello, Jake.
Hear me? How are you?
We're good, thank you. How are you?
Good. First time attending this virtually or physically, so thanks for having me along.
Good to have you. What was your question?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a question more around the value of where these cryptocurrencies fit versus fiat. So, and to be specific, so when people are, whether they're mining, they're raising money through an ICO, or they're staking, whatever the value may be, if they're trying to hire a team, build a team around it, however they raise that capital, generate that capital, they'll use that for runway, say. So if they're doing an ICO with Ethereum, or they're mining for Bitcoin or whatever, and they're trying to hire and build out that team and grow their resources, they might convert that into fiat in order to then create that runway for their business, and then operate in real world, how they pay rent, buy things, pay salaries and such. With the movement in the global currencies now, and where oil has been the last few days, where do you see that shift in balance happening if the USD starts to come unstuck as the natural reserve around how most cryptos are pegged, whether it is BTC or Ethereum or anything else for that matter? How do you see that balance shifting out with everything happening globally?
Grant?
Mate, if we have any problems with if the US dollar starts losing strength, and look right now, the US dollar is it's the strongest currency. A lot of these smaller currencies that are sort of losing value, they're consolidating into USD right now. You can watch watch the a massive selection of forex currencies. You see US dollar is always gaining the strength. These other currencies are losing that, and you've seen it with places like Venezuela. You lose complete strength in the bolivar, and it consolidates into USD. Everyone uses USD now. So if we lose that, that number one spot, US dollar lose that, mate, I can't even imagine the implications globally. I'm not concerned about some guys running an ICO, doing things like that. I mean, globally, that is like, I can't even comprehend that.
It's the world currency.
Yeah,
it's the world currency.
Got the DXY chart up there.
Who's sharing screen? That's Grant.
So that's me. Yeah, so we can see essentially that's exactly what Bitlord's talking about. So that's the US dollar measured against other currencies. The higher it's going, the more valuable it is against other currencies. So yeah, we can see obviously, it fell down pretty much, right just before, the big move we had down in Bitcoin. So March 9 at bottoms and then rallies steeply as everything starts to crash, and now it's sort of stuck in a consolidating wedge pattern there. But I can't see. The thing is, a lot of this talk we had about, probably more 10 years ago or so, about US dollar losing its reserve status, et cetera, was basis on the possibility that China could become a reserve economy itself. And essentially, let's be honest, it doesn't really matter what the Chinese economy is doing at the moment or not. The global opinion against the Chinese government, not against the Chinese people, is at record lows. So there is not going to be a consortium of other dissenting countries that are going to all of a sudden adopt the yuan as a reserve currency and ditch the US dollar. That would just be politically suicide for anyone else in those countries. We had this discussion, as Bitlord said, we had this discussion in Venezuela 5 years, 6, 7 years ago, when they started saying, we'll take euros, we'll take yuan, they even might take some rubles or something like that, right? And that tried to happen, and it went nowhere. To think that the US political power out of this is not pretty much at all-time highs. Half of Europe's dead or old, or they don't know bloody hell what they're doing. So, the euro's not going to do it, the yuan's not going to do it. Well, you've got no other currency left. So from that point of view, the US dollar is still going to remain the king currency until they actually, and this is the thing. If you go back historically, the collapse of empires comes from within. It doesn't come from without. It comes, Rome collapsed from within. And this is what will have to happen in the US. They'll have to actually have a burnout period internally rather than some event trying to force it into something. I mean, you look at all those infographics. I think the US has something like 27 aircraft carriers. China has 1. Anyone who thinks that there's going to be any type of fair, military combat, just need to look at that one chart.
100%. On that last point there, Grant, like about the the economy's collapse within, and Rome, they had a similar thing happen, but it was just from debasing a currency. Like they used to, get all the gold from taxes, melt it down, put copper or whatever in it, and it's just debasing. Now they just print money. So personally, I say that's what the decline of USD would be: printing too much money, leveraging too much debt, and not actually having a solution around it.
So just on the, one last thing. So another way to ask something along the same lines. Let's say you're going to sell BTC and you were trading it on Kraken in the US against USD. What sort of opportunities do you see in the short term? Let's say you take that out of the Kraken exchange into into some cold storage and then move it into another exchange. Which exchange would you put it into to take it out into which currency? Is it the Australian dollar? Do you think that there are opportunities to do such things as move it around and exchange, or you think sticking with USD or whatever you're trading in crypto, or pegging it to a stable coin that does basically the same thing.
I mean, Grant could
Mate,
comment, but he's probably got bias. But yeah, I would just say,
maybe
definitely
I'll
mine
abstain.
digital.
Yeah.
Of course, mine digital.
I'll let Juice and Bitlord have a go.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, the last thing that I want to be holding right now is Australian dollars. It's been like that for a while, and it's been a good choice. Australian dollars been losing. It's lost like 40% of its value over the past couple of years. I mean, it had an all-time high of about $1.08 USD. What's it about 65 cents now, 70 cents? I can't remember last I checked. It's been extremely volatile, but I treat AUD like a shit coin, mate. It's the last thing I want to hold.
Aussie peso, get it?
Oh, the Aussie peso.
Yeah, Aussie peso. That's it. Look, the thing is, like being an Australian, it's like you're getting money onto these Aussie exchanges. Look, I support all the local Australian exchanges. I think it's a really good way to do things. I want to see these Aussie businesses growing and get that way. So if I'm sending money to an Australian exchange, I'm using that to get some BTC, but then I'm holding that BTC, offline or in a wallet or something like that, or possibly in USDT. So, it's just Australian dollar is the last thing that I want to hold. I don't have a lot of faith in the AUD. It's very hard, to do anything with. For me, BTC is where it's at. So, most people that, you got to look at it like this. The amount of money that the Australian dollar has lost, that is like a hidden tax on the economy. So right now, let's say you're working for, I'll use $10 an hour as an example. You're working for $10 an hour. Maybe a couple years ago, that was actually $10. So you look at it in comparison to the US dollar. But right now, it's about $6.50. And if you had $1 million house, your $1 million house, it's not worth $1 million anymore. Even if you're pricing it at 1.2. Because of the erosion of the AUD. So it's like a blanket hidden tax across the economy. If you're holding US dollars right now, it's like every time that you're going to spend anything, you really feel the power of the dollar because, Australian things are so cheap now. It's like, you go down, you're going to buy a meal from, McDonald's or something like that. And it's like $10 or $12. You're like, you might think, it's actually, McDonald's has increased their prices over the past couple of years. It's expensive. In terms of US dollars, it all feels cheap. So, getting the funds into Australian exchanges, holding them in BTC or USD, that's why I do things. And I think there's a few people out there that do that. But, for most people, I mean, everyone has a different strategy.
Thank you.
I think to that, just to touch on that as well. I think it then depends on what you're saying you want to do with the funds. If it's just to literally move to because you want to have a currency play, yeah, I think we bottomed at 55 cents. We're at 63 cents. We started this move at 70 cents, so we're literally almost in the middle of that range. From a trading point of view, it's limited. Personally, I still think you want to be short Aussie dollar, as Sir Bitlord is saying, because I still think we're going to comparatively probably have a harder time in the interim. I think longer term, as I said, coming back to my point, for the only one real upside, I think for Aussie, the Aussie economy is the fact we grow stuff and we dig stuff out of the ground, and that type of stuff is actually going to still probably, we've got a demand shock at the moment where people don't need as much as that, but if that starts improving, people are going to want that stuff again. So. That's the one good thing we've got going for us here. And, that always, again, it is sort of like gold and silver. People always need to be fed. People always need to buy coal. People always need to buy iron ore. So, whilst we've got that stuff, that will always put a baseline under the Australian economy. But, I don't think, I wouldn't be taking, as I said, I think you sell the Aussie dollar at this level. That's my call on that.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty frightening. Straight around the crash, Aussie dollar went down to about 54 cents. Like, I was definitely worried. I mean, we, got caught out like probably a lot of businesses that import did. We were buying Bitcoin miners and had to put a larger order through and had to pay a ridiculous amount more than what we were expecting. So, I mean, it's definitely an issue. But
Thanks.
Like November last year. When did COVID start, Bitlord?
Well, mate, I mean, officially,
Just give me an official date.
officially, we'll say end of December. End of December.
Yeah.
But I guess let's say sort of like early January is when it was really on the radar. World Health Organization were aware of it, but don't get me started on the WHO.
So
Gonna turn into a conspiracy.
Like, I walk my dog down the beach most days, and there's oil rigs that land at Newcastle, just above Sydney there. And every time they're there, the Aussie dollar usually tanks a couple of weeks after. But these oil tankers have been there through October to November, like more than you've ever seen before. You know, like, do they know something that we don't, or?
Well, they probably do, mate. And look, you could look at that and go, oh, it's a coincidence, but there's coincidences really don't exist. Everything happens like that. So if you've seen a pattern when these oil tankers are there, and then, not long after the Aussie dollar's, collapsing, then, mate, there seems to be some sort of correlation, and that's a good indicator. It's like when your best friends start calling up saying, mate, how do I buy Bitcoin? Maybe I should start selling. That's
one of them today.
We've all got one of those in our group.
So some of these, some of these commodities and things like that, they can be unique ways to harvest US dollars, because as oil's priced in USD. It hasn't been doing that well, but who knows? These companies could be hedged. They could be they could be doing well. But all I know, mate, is that when I see a pattern like that, I don't ignore it, and I tend to take a closer look at it. So, mate, you may be onto it. You may be onto it.
Like, I'm not like, I hate even saying the racist word, but to me, China play chess. They don't play in the playground to have fun. They play chess. They want to win.
Yeah.
I've got my face blank, so I suppose I'm allowed to say this, but like, it's pretty truth and hard hitting. They play chess, and to me, this seems like a major move.
Well, look, mate, I mean, it could be like, you see all sorts of theories that, the virus was released on purpose or whatever, but look, you can't look over, some of the facts. I mean, Wuhan is like the number one, connection to literally every other high-speed rail network. It started before Chinese New Year, perfect distribution of 400 million people migrating across the place. But, some people are saying, look, maybe US did it, maybe Russia did it, maybe China did it. We don't know. I don't think we'll ever know. One country could blame another country to start some shit. It could all go down like that. But at the end of the day, I mean, look, it's out there. It's doing its thing. It's the perfect economic virus, and it's out there. And I think, it has caught a lot of people off guard. A lot of businesses, a lot of, multinationals, a lot of big corporations, they would have had no idea. And it's like, if you really want to go crazy, I mean, you start looking at, September 11, there was, strange stock movements and stuff like that. I mean, shit, man, you can really go down that rabbit hole. But I just like to look at the fact
really going down the rabbit hole too much. Like, bring it back to, like, the price to me, the chart. And like you said, something always happens that you can blame it on. If the market was pumping, everyone would be going, fuck, let's have COVID again next year. But in reality, but like, I don't know, like, where do we sit? Like, if China, they're huge miners, right, Will? Is that?
Massive. Probably most of the mining would happen in China, Canada, Russia. These are where the major places are. So on the point, like, even yourself, Juicy, like, I haven't got my face showing, so I can make these comments. But like, in this day and age, you can't it's a big move to even call someone out like that, and that's why a lot of these things don't really come to fruition of what potentially really happened. Like, I'm not saying that happened, but you're not the first, or we're not the first people to suggest that this is possibly what has happened or what is happening. And I think the underlying theme here is it just shows how little the average person actually has access to the truth or what is really going on. and without kind of saying that the fiat currency is going to collapse or anything like that. I think it is a real testament to cryptocurrency and to Bitcoin. You do have a lot more control over what you're doing, and you don't have to rely on, or you don't have to be lied to by the government printing money. Just to tie it back to the kind of theme there, but yeah.
Back on the theme, but of China mining Bitcoin. Like obviously, there's not someone in China. I'm not taking their Bitcoin off BitMEX. Like, what are they doing with it? Do they keep it? Are they selling it?
It really comes down to what's going on in the market. So you'll hear the phrase like miners turning off their miners, and like if you look at charts of network hash rate, when the Bitcoin halving comes up, you'll see all the Bitcoin cash halving. You literally see the network hash rate drop substantially. So what are they doing with the coin? A lot of them are hoarding it. A lot of them are holding it. There's even kind of theories out there that it's like virgin Bitcoin. If you've got Bitcoin that's coming from the reserve and has never been transferred to everyone else, in a few years' time, that actually might trade at a premium. We were talking about before how Bitcoin's actually one of the most traceable assets. In the underworld, you wouldn't use it because you can see literally on the blockchain exactly where it's gone to. Miners over in China, some of them are literally holding these virgin Bitcoins that have just come straight from the reserve and haven't been transferred around. That they might be traded at a premium with no trace attached to them at a later date. So, to answer your question of what they're doing with it, everyone's strategies are different. Most of them would be mining them and holding them, and selling off enough to pay power bills.
Yeah, cheers.
No worries.
Guys, are you guys familiar with Plan B's stock to flow model?
Personally, I'm not, no.
Grant, Bitlord?
Yeah.
Anyone have any thoughts on it? I have a question in the crowd asking for thoughts on it.
It's like all models. It's a guess at what reality might actually be. Is it based on anything that's, it's based on some pretty good, it seems like some pretty reasonable concepts and some reasonable data. It fits gold well, it fits silver well, and that's the argument to why people are saying why it should fit Bitcoin well. Personally, the thing that worries me the most on all of those things is when you actually look at the deviation. So when it gets it wrong, the chart's on an exponential chart, so it makes the deviations look a lot smaller than what they are. In reality, if you actually traded it, there'd be times when you're offside 50, 60, 70%. Now, for some people, that's fine. For most people, they're going to pack their bags in when they're that far offside and quit and probably not hold on. So, from that point of view, if it helps you, if it's deviated a long way from the model and it helps you get in and that it gives you confidence to stay in, well, in that aspect, I guess the model's helping you and it's useful to you. You buy it when it's exactly, on the model and then it deviates that far away, you're probably not going to have that same opinion of it. But, as I said, it's definitely had some, predictive ability in the past, but most models tend to lose their predictability once they're made public.
Okay, fair enough. Interestingly, I just did a quick poll for the attendees asking 3 questions. First one was, is the halving priced in? The second one is, do you perceive Bitcoin as a high-risk asset? And would you go long or short on oil? I got 50-50 on everything from all 30 in here.
Thanks, everyone.
So my concern here is that fair enough, long or short on oil. Yeah, some people say short, some people long. That's fine. Halved in or not, fair enough. The price that halving might not be priced in. But do you perceive Bitcoin as a high risk asset? Yes, 57% said yes.
I would even say yes, you know what I mean? But is it as high risk as it was 2 years ago? No, not at all.
But high risk to what though? Like as Bitlord said. Bitcoin.
Wait, Bitcoin's in
Bitcoin.
Where is he?
Satoshi's here.
Satoshi's here. Yeah.
Like as Bitlord said.
That's the way I've seen it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just brainwashed from years and years of the pump, but it just feels to me like, again, my bias. I can't speak anything other than, to me, it's just like fucking, it's a holy grail. So
I better just steer out of this one,
Yeah, like to
I
me, AUD in the bank at the moment's a high risk.
I would 100%
Yeah.
agree with that. I think everything's got risk to it. The only reason why I would say it's still high risk is just because how long it's been around for. You know what I mean? Like, there's risks there, and unfortunately, this comes back to government again. But if they start putting in regulations that make it harder for people to hold or people to engage with this network, unfortunately enough, although people still can do it, the majority of people are going to steer clear of it. So for those reasons, I still say yes, it's high risk. Am I still going to invest in it? Absolutely. I think it's got a lot of upside to it. Usually things with high risk do have that upside, but you do make a very, very valid point that like right now, what hasn't got high risk, and when you question it, potentially it is better to hold Bitcoin than it is to hold Australian peso.
Like to me, if you've got 100K in Bitcoin, I can go and take that out right now, or I can go and spend it right now. If I've got 100K AUD in Aussie dollars, they're going to question me over 10% of that.
Definitely in cash as well.
Yeah.
That's it, man. I mean, it's Australian dollars. What can you do? It's like it's not your money. It's literally not your money.
Yeah, and that's very shocking that people still don't get that it's actually not your money. Like I found out the other day my sister's been saving cash since she started working. I'm like, why don't you invest in anything? Why? There's no point saving just cash in a zero interest account.
Shocking.
That's actually a bad thing to do. And she's like, okay, so what do I invest in? I was talking to her about a few things to invest in, and she's like, okay, so I hear the banks might think, can I take cash and put it at home? And she actually asked the bank if she can withdraw 15 grand in cash. And she came back home looking at me and just going like, why did they tell me to come back in a few days? Why isn't it my money? Why did they make me fill out a form? Why did they? But then you get shocked that most people are not aware that there's no vault in the bank. They're not holding your money.
Yeah.
They're not waiting for it. It's not yours. It's theirs.
That's it, man. It's like the people of Greece, the people of Cyprus, Venezuela, etc. I mean, they all had money. They had pensions. They had everything. And then literally overnight, thanks very much. We need to rebalance things. It's like, whoa. So it's like, that's for me. I mean, Bitcoin, nobody is going to take that. Nobody can take that stuff. So, it's as we like to say, one BTC, always one BTC.
That motherfucker will sneak in at night and take it.
Oh, yeah, Bitcoin in that sense by itself, just as simple as even carrying it across borders. All I need to know is my private key, and that's it. I can take my money anywhere. There's nothing you can do to take it from me. It's stored here. Good for you. Bye.
I mean, technically, can they ban it?
They've tried. They've tried multiple times, and my thing will keep coming back to the main thing is that I remember when China said Bitcoin is illegal. And if China was not able to ban Bitcoin, nobody in the world can fucking ban Bitcoin.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, I think the best they can probably do is make it difficult to on ramp and off ramp. That what are they going to do? Say, oh, you're not allowed to hold Bitcoin. Like, well, how are you going to prove I'm holding Bitcoin? You know what I mean? Like, if you've got it on an Exodus wallet or something like that, it's too hard to trace. But they can, potentially put in things in place like, you can't sign up like the US have. You can't really sign up to crypto.com and have a crypto.com card in the US. Like they don't allow it. You can't really, they can put these kind of restrictions in for on ramp and off ramp. But at the end of the day, it's up to the people to decide, what risk they want to take. And if they don't see a risk in holding it, despite the government saying it's illegal, then that's that.
Yeah, like I got a local coffee shop and a few weeks back, he said, he didn't know with all the restaurants closing and that, whether he'd be closed. And he knew I was into crypto and he asked me, like, how hard would it be to set up something like a Dash wallet and have people come in to pay for coffee that way? Sort of like illegal coffee, because he said I would not be able to accept money if my business is closed. As stupid as this sounds, this is how it is at the moment.
Just tell him not to take B trash.
Yeah. It's Bitcoin, man. It's just one thing. It's BTC. Yeah. The thing is, look, for these guys that want to accept Bitcoin. I mean, look, it works like that. But one thing that BTC, like when you start realizing that you don't own your own money, it's not yours. You do You need to jump through all these hoops to get it out of a bank or something like that. You start looking at things a little bit differently, and crypto takes you down that journey. And then eventually you get to the point you start to realize that you don't own your own data. You don't own your information, pretty much your identity in some cases. So you start looking at the world completely different. And, on that topic, I mean, you see right now, all of these major media organizations, social media organizations, all of their terms and conditions and all these things that they're bringing in to, show you what you can say, what you can't say, et cetera, et cetera. The reason they're doing that is because, a lot of people are starting to, I guess a lot of people are fed up the way things are run. And social media is the most powerful thing because it's actually the voice of the people. So they've had to bring these sort of restrictions in, to tell you what you can and can't say. And it's now, we don't even own our own voices. So it's coming to that realization now. It's like, well, fuck, like, where can I go and say something? Or, I can't go and say whatever I want on Twitter now because it's come to that. You can't do it on YouTube. Even these guys that are producing crypto videos, they're getting banned left, right, and center. They're doing God's work on that platform. It's just coming down to the stage of, I don't own my own money. I don't own my own voice. Like, what the fuck do I own? So, it's just like, wow, it's an eye opener. It really is an eye opener right now. And I can't even go outside. I don't even, I'm just like, shit, how did we get here so fast?
Yep, that's.
I mean, are you recording this or what?
This is being recorded, obviously.
Yeah, I'm recording. I'll be posting on the mining site YouTube.
All right,
my thing is that
I should have said no. Give us your opinion.
No, I keep thinking about this, that I genuinely thought when the end of the world would happen, it was going to be glorious, especially from the old Bitcoin days and remembering that whole theory. And I was like, guys, listen, I'm ready. End of the world happens. We're going to fucking party. And it looks like it's happening now. It's actually quite depressing. It's not really that glorious.
It's like The Big Short, hey? There's two dudes.
Well, yeah, but
yeah, literally.
I mean, it's what Bitlord said. I mean, I can't leave my house. What the fuck's the world come to?
Yeah, I want to party. Like, let's all, go down to the beach, check it out, like a bit of tequila, bonfire. That's fucking good to me, man. But we can't do that. This would be a great meetup if we were like local, chilling down at a pub or a restaurant or like a beach or something. Man, that's a life. But nope, we'll get fucking arrested. Like a drone will fly by, like, woo, like, move on. Did you see that thing where like this is how crazy it's gone, right? There's these people that went camping. You're seeing it all there. They're going camping like out in the middle of nowhere. There's a fucking chopper going by, a police chopper saying, no matter where you are, we'll find you. I'm like, yo, he's fucking isolating. There's literally a tent in the middle of nowhere, and then they're cracking down on that. It's mindless shit, man. It really is.
I know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy. That dude knows a guy. And he's flying his drone around the Gold Coast collecting Bitcoin and dropping off whatever you need in a drone. House to house. Yeah, genius, eh?
Innovation.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's got a battery.
I think it's Jeff Bezos.
That's on Amazon.
Yeah.
So what do we have?
Yeah, you're right, but your point's right, sir. Is that you envisage it this way? It doesn't. It wasn't. Imagine if we said if I said to you like 12 months ago, the Fed is going to print $8 trillion. Like, you'd fucking fall over and have a fit on the ground. You would have 100%. Thought you would have thought Bitcoin would be at 100,000.
I would have thought you're crazy if you told me that.
Yeah, but you also would have had a fit as well.
Like, well, yeah.
Said crazy,
don't forget the fit.
And then had a fit. Yeah. But
even
7,300 acting rationally.
But even that's shocking in itself. I mean, the way they were talking about, let's print an extra couple of $1 trillion like it's nothing. Like, they have no concept of understanding of what money is. I don't claim to be an economist, but like, we had someone over there saying we should print $2 trillion coins. Why 2 coins? Why not a paper? Why? And how is that debt-free borrowing? How are we not seeing the implications of this? And how does the Fed say that we have an infinite supply of money?
Yeah, it always just
that's all
comes
the
back down
questions
to printing money. Like, it just doesn't seem like the right solution. It seems like a lazy, quick fix to mull things over and just delay it over a longer period of time, to be honest. And like, if you bring it back to incentive, like we've mentioned, for example, Venezuela. Like, Venezuela got so much oil that they just pretty much funded the lives of all their people, and when things changed and that couldn't happen anymore, oil wasn't high enough in price for them to keep doing that, everyone just got lazy, and then everything went into hyperinflation. Like, if you just print money, and I'm not saying you don't take care of people, but I think it's got to be better policies to actually help people out, not just print money and think that's going to solve the solution.
I think everyone's just caught up in like what you do with money. Do you know what I mean? Like, imagine someone come out tomorrow and said, all right, all of a sudden we've got 31.5 million Bitcoin getting around.
Yeah, exactly. Like, people would freak. Probably, yeah,
all right, I'm
really
out.
good point. Like, if you did that, like, because everyone knows that it's a storage of value asset, like, how much do you think the price would actually dump? Like, if you ask me, I reckon it would fall through the ground. Like, the whole principle of Bitcoin would just be destroyed. Yeah. But yet with like US dollar, they just print all this more money, and people just go, oh, yeah, it's okay. Like, we're used to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the whole thing on BTC. It's deflationary. It's a deflationary asset. That's, every 4 years, the block reward halves. I mean, if you look at it, like, I mean, I'm pretty sure we're all experts, or armchair experts. And you think about it like
I
this.
wish I had an armchair. You bought it early.
Well, every day, more people are learning about BTC. More and more people learn about it. There's more money that's coming in. Statistically, we see that most coins, over 60 or 70%, something crazy like that, coins, they go into their address and never move. So most people are holding this stuff. They're not selling it. So
70% of Bitcoin.
Every 4 years, inflation halves. So less coins are coming to market. Don't need to be a genius on a long enough time frame. If we maintain that model, price should appreciate. It sounds good to me. If that was ever to change, like, to issue more coins and stuff like that, I'm out. I'm done. It's not what I signed up for. And that's the sort of stuff you saw with a lot of these other forks and things like that. They just didn't gain the traction or support because, it's not Bitcoin. That's what it's all about. And, we're talking about, all of these world's currencies, all of this sort of situation. And, without getting, too sort of patriotic here, BTC really is supposed to be that solution. It's supposed to be that alternative system. We have this debt system, and then we have this BTC system where, it is what it is. We have the inflation, we have the deflation. I'm signing up for this one. And
on that note, like, if you go to mass adoption, I mean, we all would agree, like, Bitcoin can't be the currency that we use, if we get rid of all fiat currency. But, right now, what would you guys, think would be the closest thing to a global fiat currency? It could be a cryptocurrency. It could be, I think you understand what I'm saying. Like, you can't really use Bitcoin transacting it all the time. It's a storage value asset. Like, what do you think is the best thing?
Am I allowed to say something controversial again?
Go ahead.
XRP. Like, fuck.
I'm removing you off the panel.
Yeah.
No, I had an argument with the actual crypto meetup. Why the fuck would you invest in that? But, like, everyone's working on money.
That was at our last meetup, the actual physical meetup.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? People say, well, why would you want to make money off XRP? It's like, well, you work a job you don't like to make money.
Well, yeah.
XRP is positioned for this sort of thing.
Hey, I long Ripple all the time. I think it's one of the easiest coins to know when it's going to pump. And when Ripple pumps, it pumps.
Yeah. That's it, man. Look, BTC is not scalable. We have, sort of second, third party solutions that are coming, like Lightning and things like that. They're not exactly consumer friendly right now. So, BTC isn't exactly the thing. But for me, I always imagine, like, the perfect thing for me, Bitcoin wise, would be if I had a BTC wallet, and then I could just, I have my BTC, that's where I could store all my shit, like my digital gold, I store my wealth. And then I had like a sub account where I could just, cash a little bit of that BTC into like a US dollar, and then just use my phone to fucking pay for shit, scan it like that. Like, my Bitcoin wallet would be my bank, and I could access the normal traditional financial world of that. That's a dream come true. We have things like, decentralized finance and things like that, but they don't integrate with the modern financial system. So, that's the way it is. But I think CloudJooce said it. Look, XRP is pretty scalable. They're already moving, billions and billions of dollars around the place. But are they going to come out as a market leader? I don't know. I mean, we're seeing the digital yuan, basically like a blockchain version of, the Chinese yuan. It's literally in testing right now. They're literally using it right now. And I think we spoke about beforehand. We're about to see a digital yuan take over. Grant said that. Fuck, I don't think so. But
I don't think so either. But I wouldn't even mind asking, like, Grant, on that point. If these government-backed digital currencies do come into fruition, is this something that exchanges will offer? Like, you'll be able to trade your Bitcoin for yuan? Are they going to be private chains? Like, what can you comment on that?
Yeah, well, as you said, Matt, it all comes down to the chain, the wallet, where they where they can move to. But I mean, at the end of the day, China's got the best. They got a digital yuan coming. I don't even actually particularly no reason why they need it when they got WeChat anyway. Every transaction goes through that already. Everything's recorded. It's all there. So I mean, coming back to your point, just you don't even need you don't need XRP. You don't need anything. You just need WeChat and make up a number that we all agree to. That's the representative number of the day for the asset that we're trading against, whether it be BTC Gold, your house, wheat or whatever. And then that's it. And then those little things just go back and forth, and that's just facilitating the transactions. But the actual asset then might not ever move. But that could just be made up. Any piece of data could be made up. I think Lee's thrown up Libra. Yeah, I mean, otherwise you could just have a stable coin. You could just have some other stable coin other than Tether, or even Tether then also step into that. And again, it's just the market determines an exchange rate for it, which it does. I mean, so it's a prime example. Like I know we've just been, rightfully so, been trashing fiat currencies. Let's be honest. Absolutely, you would have to be criminally insane to believe that Tether is backed. It's not backed. It's just that everyone in the community has agreed that Tethers should be exchanged for one for US dollars in the crypto world.
We need something to agree on that's stable in a volatile
and we just all agree, and that's how it holds its tether. It holds its peg by literally by consensus, not by actual economics. So yeah, we could find a replacement relatively quickly.
I mean, it's just funny. Like I caught myself. I used to transfer money around different exchanges to get different rates and stuff like that, and I had to take Bitcoin maximalist out of my Twitter bio because I caught myself switching to XRP to move it around exchanges because it happens instantly.
So that's interesting. That's interesting. You mentioned that Mind Digital actually wrote a piece on arbitrage between exchanges locally here in Australia. And I mean, yes, if you wanted to buy if you bought Bitcoin on Mind Digital and sold it on BTC markets, you would actually make a profit. Now the question is, how do I move said cash from Mind Digital to BTC markets? The solution was just move it into XRP, and you don't need to. It's just instant.
Thanks,
XRP,
Brad.
boom, back there, and just keep cycling it. And that's so.
I
Yeah,
mean,
that's I guess
to me that makes sense right now as something that the whole world could use.
And they do. I mean, fairly, they do actually use it. And so there are corridors working. They do. I mean, again, the whole piece came out and explained that the XRP business, you can achieve what Ripple is doing with different solutions. XRP as a token is not integral to the Ripple solution. That's the disconnect there.
I mean, at the moment, but I've got a friend in clothing, right? And they rely on imports from China, but they cut off bank transfers to the China warehouse. So they just moved everything to XRP, sent it that day, got the shipment within a week.
But why wouldn't you do it in USDT, which is stable? Ripple could dump to 20 cents tomorrow. What do you do then?
Who's
Bitlord's like, no, it's not dumping. It's going to 50 cents tomorrow.
589.
I mean, like everyone uses different sort of mechanisms through crypto. I mean, some people use Ethereum that became one of the first popular things to transfer instead of BTC, because it was a more, it was a more liquid market than some of the other alts. Relatively stable, but you'd want to be on your screen ready to cash out if it was supposed to be a dollar transaction or anything. Guys are using pretty much anything they can find their hands on, and it just like it's like you're talking about beforehand. Someone trying to like a tradie trying to get 10 grand out to pay a tradie. I mean, shit, we're finding ways to do this. Someone's got to pay a warehouse or a factory in China. They can't send a bank wire. So, bam, they just go, fuck it, we'll send some crypto. And, it works. And, are they losing a little bit of money in fees or exchange rate? They could be losing a little bit of money. They could be making a little bit of money. I mean, it's not ideal. When you're sending $100, you want $100 to get there. But, we're doing what we can in the times. And, it's much easier than, sending some gold or some, whatever through the post. I mean, cryptos, we'll just use whatever we can, mate.
Well, I think the good thing is that we're seeing a lot more people actually using crypto for day-to-day transactions. For we're at mining, so we use it to pay for our mining rigs. Like, I mean, 2-3 years ago, most people would just bought it because you could buy it and it potentially went up in value. So it's good to see it's actually being used to transfer now.
So, Grant, I just had a question from Jimmy here in the crowd. So, what he was asking, I can answer part of that question, but I'll let you talk a bit more about the rest of the question. This question was more around holding Bitcoin. Should you always keep it in cold storage? Is it safe to leave it on an exchange, or what the thoughts are on that? So, my input on that would be that, of course, as always, as a Bitcoiner, not your keys, not your coins, end the story. But in certain cases, I mean, holding it on an exchange can have the benefits of, for example, assuming you were to hold it with Grant and Mine Digital, you're essentially, number one, your coins are protected with insurance and custody. You can walk them through that more with Grant. And on top of that, sometimes it's actually quite hard to manage. I mean, I know I say manage your keys. I've been holding my coins since 2013. And when I go into key management phase, I'll spend the whole weekend stuck reconsolidating ledgers and papers. And so, yeah, I can understand for someone older how it could be a bit difficult. So, I mean, Grant, do you want to just explain what custody and insurance looks like with Mine Digital and how people's funds are protected in case a hack happens or anything like that?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, first off, personally, I guess when I first got into crypto, probably like most of the guys here, like yourself, was super into self-custody, self-storage, never kept anything on exchange, moved everything all the time, blah, 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 blah. All the, the stuff that you get into it, you think, well, it is good practice and it's good to learn it and it's worthwhile to learn it and it's valuable to learn it, right? Because one, it allows you to actually understand how the system works, transactions occur, move things across, signing transactions, all that good stuff. So yeah, I think a lot of us have started there. I guess ultimately very quickly it becomes, if you're really frank, if you've been hacked in the last 2 years in exchange, you're just doing something completely wrong. So the Koreans get hacked and the Japanese get hacked because for whatever stupid reason they leave all the coins in the hot wallets, and that's mainly a cultural thing because in those cultures you're not supposed to steal. Cryptopia was completely inside employee job. Someone didn't do some server maintenance, etc. They came in through that way. Even the Binance hack recently, again, was just actually Binance running ahead of themselves, not securing their API connections correctly, and people getting in that way. So from that point of view, where modern technology is with the wallet technology is now far in advance that the hackers can't actually crack multi-sig wallets or hardware HSMs and things like that. So at the end of the day, if the provider has a proper technology backing to it, it's going to be very hard for those exchanges ever to get hacked. So I think that's the big difference. You've moved within the last 3 years. We've gone from where the technology was somewhat a little bit less robust, and now it's super robust, and within a period of time it's going to probably be even more robust again, to where that whole consideration will probably disappear from most people's minds. As we know, most hacks now happen via other different means. It happens via, SIM swapping. It happens via literally, I'll grab you off the street and put a gun to your head. Like that's more of a risk to lose your Bitcoin than getting hacked on a reputable exchange. As you said, secondly, insured custody. So essentially, and that covers, our insurance policy even covers employee malfeasance. So the under the Cryptopery example, where the employees did something wrong, you would get, you'd have to go through a claim process. Yes. At the moment, we are looking at, basically 80 to 85% of all of our coins sit in cold storage at all time anyway, within, tier 4 data centers in a Faraday cage. So, that's impenetrable from all, basic purposes. And obviously then the advantage of keeping on exchange is, one, you can access it, you can trade immediately. Again, you shouldn't keep on exchange more than what you're not going to use. If you've got a stack of 100 Bitcoin, you only want to trade 10 Bitcoin at any one given point in time. Obviously, take the 90 off and trade the 10. Like that's just good common sense management of your assets. And I think as what we're trying to push forward at the moment is that the next thing that will come will be you're going to start getting paid interest on your Bitcoin on exchange won't become the abnormal, that'll become the normal within a year or two as well. So, again, so there will be some benefit to that. And, exchanges are going to fight for those deposits like banks used to fight for those deposits. Unlike cash, which we've just spoken about, which is printed and there's a lot of it, as we've spoken about, Bitcoin's a deflationary fixed supply asset. So we're going to have to, exchanges are going to want those coins on their exchange, so they're going to pay for them.
100%.
Okay, let's. What other questions do I have over here? Let's see. I have. When is the next liquidity injection from the? No, when the next liquidity injection from the Fed is?
When? Probably next week.
Yeah, I was going to say. I don't know. I haven't checked the news in the past 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Someone has his hand up. Oh, Josh here. Let's get Josh on here. Mr. Green, how are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, man.
Yep, we can hear you loud and clear.
If I had my hand up, it was an accident. Oh, yeah, I did have it up. That's all right.
Think quick, mate.
Shit. Good question. Should I be long or short?
Whatever comes to your mind first.
You're the trader, not us. We should be taking advice from you.
I just close my eyes and press buttons. See what happens.
To be honest, the way I've been looking at it recently is that when I look at the chart, it's a 50-50% chance. It's going to go up or down. Now, as long as you manage your risk well and your stops are close enough, I'll be right 50% of the time. The 50% I get stopped out, I lose 5%. The 50% that I'm right, I gain 25%. So, all generally, as long as the risk is managed well, you're generally up. That's just
my personal opinion is the thing that people fuck up the most is sizing. So as long as you can size something like semi-reasonable, you'll be okay. You'll be broadly okay. You won't go broke too quickly, at least.
Yeah, it's those all-ins that kind of cause the wreckage to happen.
Yeah.
Or particularly like margin trading is like a major issue for beginners. And
revenge trading. Yeah. I'm gonna get it back.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like people jump into trading on margin accounts and, don't realize they're paying swaps, holding these positions and things like that. Like if you're just getting into trading, particularly cryptocurrency, it's definitely worth the shout of just, buying maybe a dollar cost average, buy like a piece at like $50, $100 every week or something like that. Like don't try pick the bottoms and tops. And then, in 2 years time, you'll probably find with a storage of value asset that's worth a lot more. And then you can start trying to be cute with things, okay, look, things look a bit top heavy, but I reckon it's just like trade long-term, not short-term when you first get into it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, over the medium term, as more like traditional players get into crypto, you'll see the market start to trade a bit differently, where it'll start to trade less on charts, and it'll start to trade more on things like wells and correlations and curve shapes and all the things you look at in the normal wells.
Yeah, I think it's happening now, to be honest. Like, back five or so years ago, Bitcoin, I found, or not even 5 years ago, 2 years ago, Bitcoin just followed like Fibonacci retracements. Like it was literally just like, oh, I hit this point, okay, it's going to turn around now, and so it did. Now you're starting to see like short squeezes, you're starting to see liquidity pinches, things like that. I mean, it's probably happened previously, but yeah, more and more, you're right. Like the dynamic will change like traditional markets.
Okay, okay. So I mean, we're at the end of it. We have 10 more minutes to go. Anyone in the crowd have any more questions? Any of the listeners want anything specifically answered? Any last thoughts?
Why did someone call a project D-Force? Like, seriously, imagine, how do you pitch that to someone? I'm going to call my project Dick Force and then lose all the money. Like,
apparently the money got sent back by the hacker.
I know.
And what's funny is after he sent the money back, apparently when he sent the money back, he leaked his IP. So they found him and they know who it is now. And they're making him pay back more money.
It's the bloke from the memes. He's got plenty of D-Force.
Jeez. Heavy on the D-Force.
Yeah.
Do you all think that everyone's too impatient with like Bitcoin being the place to be during all this? I mean, everyone wants it to moon overnight. Do you think, Bitlord especially, do you think this is more of a 10-year thing, 20-year thing?
I think people are getting more patient. Like if you look at 2017, people would, I think someone mentioned it earlier, like, when you guys were talking about the oil riggers rocking up on shore and what's a good indicator? Like, one indicator that my old man said to me was, when your taxi driver starts talking about it, you should probably sell. Like anyone was just buying in because things were going up and they were expecting to get that return up. 2018 came around and people expected the same thing. I'm only going to buy Bitcoin to get rich. I think now people are starting to realize, it's not going to take over. It might, but it's probably not going to take over as the number one currency in the world, but it is an alternative situation and financial system. And having exposure to it is a no-brainer. And people are starting to follow those standard strategies, a bit like a dollar cost average, or get into the mining, get little bits at a time. I reckon people are a lot more patient than what they have been.
Yeah,
I think it's actually but Juice, I actually think, mate, it's legitimately a really good question, and for most people, I think is people are gonna, if you steam in now and you buy it at 7,000, it doesn't go straight up. Are you gonna be the guy who's wanting to sell then 6,500 and then just been a pointless exercise? And you've just lost your money and you've lost your opportunity. So yeah, I actually think it's actually a really good thing for people to consider. If you believe that this is a movement towards a way that the economy in the world is going to work, you're going to have to give it a bit more time than 3 days and the Fed, making some noise.
Yeah, like I've been telling a lot of my friends who are on Job Seeker, they've gone from 750 a fortnight to 1,500.
Yeah.
And this is not financial advice. This is me pointing under their head saying, put the other 750 in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
get it out of the Aussie peso as quick as you can.
The reality is, if you zoom out enough, the Bitcoin is always just bullish. It just is.
Yeah, like the people that we want to buy it shouldn't even be looking at a chart. It should be just, I've got no other option.
Remember the 1 second charts we were playing with last week, Juice?
Yeah.
I shouldn't bring that up.
Yeah, I almost got a heart attack, to be honest, just staring at the 1 second charts. Just
like what's this link about? I know nothing about it.
Chainlink.
Chainlink.
Duncan, where are you?
Yeah.
Is Duncan here?
Yeah, he is.
I just unmuted him.
This is going to 10 o'clock now.
Yeah.
I'm trying to unmute him. I'm going to give him literally 2 minutes to explain what.
Juice, how much do you know about Pepe memes?
What? Pepe?
Yeah, so mate, no, you got to do a lot more work. Yeah.
Duncan,
Oh, yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Yeah.
You have 3 minutes
3 minutes
to shill Chainlink.
Do you guys like memes or?
Just what does it do for the world?
What does it do for the world?
No, the most plain external, like not external,
Normie.
like the way that you would explain it to someone is, you know how, you know, in 2017, 18, everyone was like, oh, you know, these dApps are going to change the world. Oh, you're going to fucking be able to do this and this. And none of them could do anything that they, you know, were designed to do. And it's partly because they couldn't take external data off, like data that wasn't on the blockchain, and put it on the blockchain. So, I mean, there's tons of examples. Sorry, you've pulled me in. I was half distracted with something, but
I'm half distracted with putting my credit card details into Binance to buy a link right now too.
yeah. I mean, look, honestly, I wrote like a little like Sunday shill, purely shilling it the other day. I could get Omar to send that over to you.
I'll send that to you. I'll tag you.
Yeah. I mean, and it is fundamentally, I think it's a fucking great project. Like, it has a really strong base, and from like, I'm not a fucking dev or anything, but from my understanding, it's pretty necessary for the ecosystem to advance and evolve.
In real simple terms, it's like a multi-chain blockchain. It's bringing everything together in really, really simple terms.
That's far too complex.
So it's going to be like, so it's not just going to be like it's actually going to be like a big scalable blockchain that can bring in, like, you know, things from the outside world into a blockchain, pretty much, is what you're saying.
More or less. More like it is.
I mean, it's the future.
Yeah, it's the future. It's what's going to make the future happen. It's
so it can be. I reckon if it's a future, it legit. I mean, look at what things like Ethereum and that done. I mean, look, fuck, mate. I'm looking for coins right now. I'm looking for anything to sort of, you know, park up.
What are your thoughts on Tezos?
Look, I know a lot of people have been holding Tezos, and it hasn't exactly done that much. So
yeah, look, I don't quite get it, but you know,
I just got into the ICO, and I'm hoping that eventually I'll get my 100x.
It's doing all right though.
Said no one ever.
Yeah, I'll I mean, my shill's fucking pretty shillish, but it's worth a look at, and it's definitely a project you should look further into. Fundamentally, it's the shit. For cheaper,
yeah, I'm looking for cheaper things right now. I mean, like right now we're talking around like, you know, 800, 1.2, 1.5 bill. I'm like, I want to look for something around 100 mil less market cap. You know, those are the sort of things that can rip it 3-4x.
Well, like RSR is one thing.
I was going to give it a plug as well. Yeah, RSR is what I'll be looking at.
I've heard people say that. I was looking at that like 5 minutes ago. Why? Tell me why. What's so good about RSR?
RSR is like it's got a stable coin attached to it. So like exactly what we were talking about there, like USD Tether, we don't really trust that, you know, it's backed by one US dollar. And at the end of the day, you really need something that you know other people are going to accept. There's, I suppose it hasn't been publicly announced, but they're looking to kind of partner up with PayPal, and you can go on any website, have RSR. There's 2 coins attached to it, so RSR is kind of investing in the project, I guess, and then there's a stable coin attached to it as well, and you'd be able to hold that stable coin and pay for basically anything. So,
did you just say a PayPal partnership?
Potentially.
Yeah, so
come on, bro.
that is my shill.
No, it's not. I shield it to you.
Oh no! Well,
no, I shield it to you, man.
I shield it to you.
Oh, you did not.
No,
boys.
You did.
The question is, when I lose my money, who do I hold accountable?
Grant.
Whose money?
Grant.
No, it was Duncan.
No, but look, my theory is only on what? Hubi is like the only big exchange that's listed at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as soon as it gets on fucking Binance or something, and something that Americans can fucking buy it, it's gonna do hopefully a 10x or something. So I think RSR's, purely on speculation and the amount it's been short. I think RSR.
Dollar Cody, get in some of that.
One of the guys that we're pretty close with just put RSR on my page, and this is the chart he sent me today. So he's saying, like, right now it's probably too early to enter into RSR, but you're having a look around this 78% fib line. So yeah, at 3354 is where we're going to be in the mining saw community entering into RSR. So around this level here.
Nice.
Xenon, ZNN.
Oh yeah, Xenon, big one. Oh mate, I don't want to say it again. I've already got ragged for mentoring PayPal, but Xenon potentially has a partnership with like a Jack Dorsey could be behind it from Twitter. So I'm gonna get ragged as a shiller now. Name dropper.
Yeah, no, that's what's gonna make it pump. So why not? Why not chill it?
It's a very high risk option, but definitely worth having a look at.
This is strictly Bitcoin, but if you look at the stock market at the moment, especially ASX, fuck, it sounds like Bitcoin 2017. You got all these people screaming like moon, and like, what do you think in that? What's a good investment in that? You see things going 900% in a day.
Right now?
Yeah, right now. Like, to me, that's what crypto was in 2017. It's just stupid people piling in and throwing money at things.
Depends who you're surrounding yourself with, I reckon. Like, I mean, communities where I'm involved with are pretty level-headed about what's going on at the moment. But I definitely agree with you. Look on things like Twitter. You always that's what you're going to get in places like that. You're going to get your nuffies jumping on and saying this is where things are going, not really having any due diligence or reasoning behind it, just chucking an opinion there.
Like, outside of crypto, though, have you invested in any stocks or anything, or?
Personally?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have. But again, it's like any investment, you do as much research as you possibly can, and follow a strategy and take it from there. And no one really knows what's going to happen in the future. You're only going based off the research that you can do. Most people will invest in Bitcoin because it's a storage value asset, because it's the father of cryptocurrency, because it's got the most chance to go up, or most liquidity in it. These kind of reasons. So yeah,
like to me, just as a trader point of view, you're always looking where, I don't know, call it dumb money's going. It's an easy gain. Things like Afterpay and that 300% through all this, like.
Yeah, but that's, it just depends on where you entered it as well.
I mean, but that's the same as the crypto community. Something will go down 90% and then it'll go up 30% and everyone screams it's going up 30%.
Yeah.
Exactly what Grant said. It depends where you enter.
Everybody is a lot of people don't have money right now. So something simple like Afterpay, people want to go ahead and buy stuff. They're going to use Afterpay. Business is booming. Business is fantastic. So, Afterpay goes through the moon. It makes sense. And the value of it probably outpaces earnings, but it just gets to a point that, things get silly and there's no sense to it, but it is what it is. It's like, just, enjoy the pump. And if you're not in it, you miss out, and that's
like, I'm not looking to tell my grandkids that I bought Afterpay. Like, I want to say that I bought Afterpay to earn AUD and buy Bitcoin. But what do you think's good in the ASX? Like, food delivery is going to be huge, surely.
I'll just trade the index, like the ASX 200.
Yeah, in terms of stocks, usually I'll trade ASX 200, and that's pretty much it, unless there's a real good I suppose, story behind something. Right now, pharmaceuticals or medicals, people will be trading. People will look to buy into Qantas at the right time, when they're at a very cheap historical price.
I mean, they're the only Australian
airline going to survive.
Yeah,
exactly. So I mean, opportunities like that, and same with crypto. Like, would I buy into Link because I want to hold it for the next 30 years? Probably not. But do I think it's going to have massive implications over the next 3, 6, 12 months, yeah, I do. So I'll buy it now. But like ultimately, I'm always trying to increase my Satoshi value, and that's in Bitcoin. So I try to sell off these projects and build up the Bitcoin value. And then when things are too top heavy, I've sold my Bitcoin at about 700-800 before the recent crash, and I'm still sitting on the sideline waiting to get back in.
Yeah. Yeah, like ultimately that's my goal as well as a trader, to stack sats.
Exactly, yeah.
You want to stack sats? Buy Doge. I'm not even joking.
Overdue. It's
Doge
overdue
pump.
for a pump.
Yeah.
We all
It is,
know
right?
Give us a chart, Bitlord.
I'm telling you, trust.
Thing, yeah, bro, Dodge. It's like it's a fucking foolproof pump, man. It's coming at some stage. Like it just happens. It comes out of nowhere. A lot of the times in the past, we've been able to predict this pretty closely before a big pump. This time, everybody has loaded up prematurely. Didn't get the pump. Loaded a little bit more. Didn't get the pump. A lot of people are still holding it, but now others are coming on board too and going, yeah, this should pump. And man, I'm sitting here. I'm patient. I'm very patient. And I just feel like, fuck, just give it to us already. You know,
I'm very patient. Give it to me now.
Yeah, I keep buying it, and I keep staring at the chart. And I'm like, come on.
Have you got a chart? Share a chart.
Yeah, I can.
I don't have a chart up, and I can't screen share. But the volume on this thing has been rising strongly since January 2019. It's been picking up. It has absolutely gone off the Richter from about August 2019, September. It's just been rising right now. It's at its it's one of its highest levels, and it's maintaining that volume through this year. It had its biggest volume period was on its all-time high a couple of years back, but it's building and it's steady.
It looks like a really similar chart to Raven coin.
Yeah, it just has random.
Raven is a good one, by the way.
Yeah.
Raven's a good one to buy. I mean, if you're in it for a pump, then why do you care what the coin is? These things guaranteed it's pump. Like, look at it. It's just pump down, pump down, pump down, pump down. We're at it down now. You buy it, you ride it.
Yeah.
This is actually the longest period it's gone without a pump. This is the longest period in the whole of the history of Dogecoin that it's moved across sideways through. Some people could say accumulation. Judging by the volume, it's accumulation. And look, as much as I don't want to let bias creep in here, this coin, it's conflict free. It started as a meme. It started as a joke. It's a good thing. Great community. Out of everything that deserves some love, it's Doge. And eventually, look, we want to see this moon. We want to see it. So, we'll try and be patient, but I guess on the topic we'll probably start shilling it again.
On a serious note, where do we get it on leverage?
FTX, I think.
I don't know. Can you actually get it on leverage anywhere?
Yeah, I think it might be on FTX.
I don't know personally, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't touch FTX.
FTX has it, says Josh Green. 100% Matthew.
Yeah, you're not a fan, Bitlord.
No.
It's FTX really better than Judex.
Judex is a shithole. Judex is a scam.
Yeah, that was.
What do you reckon?
Judex had one good thing going for them, and that's the risk manager. I designed that product, that tool for them from scratch. That literally. Built any user base that they had, and there's a whole bunch of stuff going on there now. I've been due to respond, but there's other things happening in the background, so I won't go too much into that. But yeah, it's a fucking shit. It's a shithole. Look, in regards to FTX, the reason I say I don't like it because there is KYC on that. Look, there's so many exchanges out there that you don't need to KYC through the crypto scene. And that's just what I naturally flock to. The less places that have my data, the better. So, obviously for your spot exchanges, you're sending BTC, through, bank transfers, credit cards, whatever the case. Yeah, you got to do your KYC. That's the way the world works. But in regards to derivatives exchanges, I strictly I have a no KYC policy. And yeah, that's the thing. I mean, my go-to right now is Prime. I'm having a lot of fun trading the oil right now. Look, FTX do have some good products, but they're just not for me.
Yeah, right. Prime is this new one that you've got gold and everything, right?
Yeah, I just signed up to it today. You sent me the link.
Yeah, it's been around for a while. It's basically it's a CFD exchange, really.
So yeah, I trade oil and Bitcoin. Yeah.
But you can trade your Bitcoin for
Forex, everything, man. It's an absolute bonanza there. So, there's some pretty cool things about it. They've got co-vesting coming up, which is going to be awesome. So you're going to have like a copy trade feature, transparency, on profits, losses, things like that. So if you're a good trader, you manage to stay consistent. You can get a whole bunch of people following you. I like that idea, so I'm checking it out. Previously to that, I mean, a lot of people spend a lot of time on BitMEX, but BitMEX, you look at them over the years, what they've done nothing. They really haven't done anything. They've had this overload issue. They profit millions every time it goes down. They've added a few contracts, but other than that, it's the same products, and there's just so much competition in the space. So people demand more. And that's why I've been looking for a new home. I've been looking for a new home for a while. Judex had the potential as a startup, but the people behind it, their motives, they're seedy, they're not honest, true people, and I've just been looking for that exchange, and it's obviously why I went there. But everyone has a different go-to, and it comes down to personal choice.
Okay, that's a good note to leave it on. Wrap this up. So thanks guys for attending. I'm gonna be just for the attendees, I'm gonna be running this every 2 weeks. We'll try to change up the panel, etc. Talk about different things while we're on here. While we're in lockdown, might as well do this since we don't get our meetups. So yeah, I'll just post another link in a week's time for you guys to register if you want to show. But yeah, thanks guys. Thanks panel. Thanks Bitlord for showing up. It's pretty
good to
awesome
meet you,
having you here.
Bitlord and Juice. It was,
hopefully we can get you on the next ones as well.
We almost finished
Will.
it.
Thanks, Grant. And
Good effort, mate.
See you,
cheers,
boys.
gents.
Yeah,
Cheers.
Thanks, heaps, guys.
That's